Jackson Dart is the real deal, and Patrick Mahomes is thriving with all of his weapons. We talk about the players whose stock is up and down as we enter week 8 on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Majuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinny Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL, fantasy, and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Today, we're going to react to the Week 7 best performances, worst performances, and we're going to go through guys that their stock is looking up as we enter Week 8, and then we'll also get to those who are looking down and maybe even going to be hard to trust in your lineups moving forward. And then we'll close out today's show with some look ahead at the waivers, some guys that you could pick up and possibly play in Week 8, because there are 6 teams on bye next week and a lot of injuries. So you're going to have to figure out some stuff on waivers most likely this week. Let's start with guys who went off this week and their stock is looking up. And we got to start with this Broncos-Giants game because it was crazy, right? And it was Jackson Dart for most of the game where you're like, wow, this Giants team is the real deal. Jackson Dart's the real deal. He scores 28 fantasy points with 4 touchdowns on the road against the Broncos defense. Incredible. He now has scored 23 points in back-to-back weeks. 3 of his 4 starts so far have been really good for fantasy. Well, Bo Nix, wasn't doing anything, and then all of a sudden the fourth quarter blows up, and he ends up scoring 40 fantasy points on the week, and he gets the Cowboys next week.
Yeah, I mean, it was slow developing, but what I like about Jackson Dart and Bo Nix is they don't care about their mistakes. They're going to keep coming. They're going to keep doing their thing. They can both run and facilitate what they need to do that way, and they're fearless, and that's important. Like, you shouldn't be afraid of the interceptions because in the end, interceptions are a small dent in fantasy, right? They're a bigger dent in reality, obviously, and that's how the Broncos came back and won the game. Jackson Dart threw a horrible interception, but we don't need to worry about the negative plays if he's being aggressive and getting the positive play. So, again, these 2 guys are going to be erratic. They're young quarterbacks. You're going to have to live with a roller coaster, but the matchups are good. It's the Eagles for the second time for Jackson Dart. At this point, maybe the matchups don't matter as much for him. He's going to find a way to compile. And then you look on the other side, Bo Nix gets the Cowboys at home, back at home, where he's a better quarterback. So, and everything lines up well this week, and they'll probably both crack potentially the top 10, given all the buys and all that this week. So if you've been skeptical about Bo Nix playing him, we recommended him. It was not pretty for a while, but he still came through. We played him in DFS. We had to love that as well. But Dart looks like a guy, again, he should be managed in every league. I have him in a lot of deep leagues. I stashed him. I haven't played him necessarily yet, but now I have a chance to probably do that this week behind some better guys that I have. But again, Dart is going to give me some good depth, and you need to pick him up if he's still available in your leagues.
Yeah, and he shouldn't be available, but if he is, that would obviously be the top waiver priority. He's just been balling out. And imagine if he had Malik Nabers. Oh, man, Malik Nabers would be doing so well right now, so sad. But moving on, Patrick Mahomes continues to thrive this year. He's playing at an MVP level again, especially for fantasy. He's the quarterback 1 on the season, averaging nearly 25 fantasy points per game. And now he has Rashee Rice back, and instantly he connects with him for 2 touchdowns, gives him 10 targets. It wasn't a lot of receiving yards. It was just 7 receptions for 42 yards. But the connections there between Rice instantly. Rice is looking up. They get the Commanders next week. Cowboys just beat up on them. So Mahomes, Rashee Rice, Isaiah Pacheco came through with a rushing touchdown this past week and led the backfield in rushing yards and carries. And Travis Kelce was okay with 3 receptions for 54 yards. I think the guy that we're most disappointed of and that we have to fear the most moving forward is Xavier Worthy. But Mahomes, Rice are just going to be automatic starts each week.
Yeah, and the trouble there is that he distributed the ball really well, and he's starting to use all his weapons. So now maybe he has too many weapons for, like, in fantasy football for his receivers, right? I mean, you pretty much have to cash in with a touchdown. Rice gets 2. Hollywood Brown gets 1. here, and then Kelsey and Worthy get shut out, even though Kelsey looked like the best receiver in that game early. So it's going to be tough if they can do whatever they want. I think they'll be able to do whatever they want this week as well. The Commanders are coming on Monday Night Football. Commanders are beat up. They're not going to have Jaden Daniels most likely. The spread is big. So it's going to be, who does Patrick Mahomes want to get a touchdown to this week? What is the matchup dictating? You knew he was going to grease the wheel of Rice right when his return. So now it could be a Worthy game. It could be a Kelsey game. It could be an everyone game. I just think, so I said they could score 50. Unfortunately, the Raiders didn't make them score 50. Yeah. Pull out Patrick Mahomes in the fourth quarter. Imagine if he was in the game in the fourth quarter, he probably throws a couple more touchdown passes. And that was unfortunate. You need some competitive people. I'm not sure the Commanders are going to give you that game without Jaden Daniels this week.
Yeah, we'll see if Jaden Daniels can come back. But, we'll get to the Raiders and just their atrocious offense here in our next segment. But talking about more players who balled out this week, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, his usage is insane, but he finally did it on the ground this week. And I don't think it's coincidence that George Kittle's back and all of a sudden the run blocking was much better for the team. Kittle had 0 targets. Don't freak out. He'll be fine. First game back. But 185 touches already for Christian McCaffrey. That's 30 more than any player on the season. And I mean, he's one of 3 running backs right now that are just like that top tier fantasy producer with Jonathan Taylor and Bijan Robinson. So if you drafted Christian McCaffrey, you are very happy right now. But let's talk about Quinshon Judkins. 3 rushing touchdowns this yesterday against the Dolphins. You start your running backs against the Dolphins. Or just everybody against the Dolphins. But another 25 touches. I think that's the key here. I mean, in 3 of the last 4 games, 25 touches, 25 touches. He had the down week in week 6, but this dude is an automatic just like start, and you can expect top 10 performances from him.
Yeah, the Browns don't do a lot of things well. We know this, but the one thing they have aging offensive linemen. But Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, this group, they can still run block, right? I mean, they're not the greatest at pass protection. They've broken down on the outside at this point. They're not the offensive line we know. But in the interior, this is why they're on the training block a lot, and we don't want that to happen. We don't want Bitonio or Teller to leave Cleveland because that would not help Quinshon Judkins at all because, again, you're surprised, right? They can't pass the ball, so you think all the attention is going to be stopping the run, but that's how good their blocking has been in the middle, and Judkins has got explosive burst here. So once he gets the open field, gets a few blocks, this is not a surprise. I mean, he was this level of runner at Ohio State. He should have been maybe drafted a little higher as I'm looking at this other people that have not produced right now. Marion Hampton's hurt. Ashton Genty's disappointing. Caleb Johnson, whatever. So I think Judkins should have probably, even his teammate, Travion Henderson, they should have maybe looked at Judkins a little bit more earlier in the draft. He's just super talented. So I think that this continues for him. I mean, he's their entire offense at this point. Their running game is their offense. And when their defense is clicking like it did against the Dolphins, it's money. It's just so good. But the problem is this week is they're playing the Patriots. I don't think you're going to get nearly as big of a game. I also hope that they stick with Judkins, even if they go down to the Patriots offense, who's just sizzling right now. The Patriots are decent, not spectacular run defense. But I'd say, look, Quinshon Judkins is going to be an RB1 the rest of the way. The volume, the usage. Look, he might drop to 95 and a touchdown this week in a tough matchup against the Patriots, and that's still RB1 quality to me. So I'm excited. Again, just imagine if they start building an offense around this guy at some point here in the next couple of years.
Now, moving on to a couple other guys who balled out. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith both scored over 26 fantasy points this week against the Vikings. Brown had a monster game with 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. Devonta Smith, 183 yards and a touchdown. These guys are going to be inconsistent, but I will say about A.J. Brown, he has at least 8 targets. Well, I guess he didn't have 8 targets in this last game, but he had the biggest game of his career, or biggest game of his season by far this last week, but has at least 8 targets in each week from weeks 2 through 6. Like, he's getting utilized. He has at least 80 receiving yards in each of the last 2 games. Just stick with him. It's going to be a headache, but stick with him. And Devonta Smith, this is who he is. It goes up and down, but 2 of the last 3 weeks, he's had over 100 receiving yards. Another bad day, though, for Saquon Barkley. So you can start getting worried about him. But two other guys I want to talk about. Jordan Addison He has scored at least 12 fantasy points in all 3 games since coming back from that suspension. Over 114 or more yards in 2 of those 3 games, with a 17.3 point game this past week. But can he keep this up with JJ McCarthy if he returns?
Yeah, that's going to be the question. Definitely Carson Wentz has an affinity for Jordan Addison. I don't know what it is, but maybe they work together a lot in the second team or whatever when Addison was headed to be suspended or whatever. So maybe that's coming into play here. But yeah, I think with the Eagles, just real quick, I just think because their running game is struggling and they have to kind of accept that. It's not going to be like last year. Their blocking's not great. Look, the Vikings even found a way to stop the tush push. So if they're not running with Jalen Hurts, they're not running with Barkley, they got to pivot and say, we got to chuck. And this could be really good for A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. Maybe this is just a realization. Look, we didn't get it done on the ground, but 3 big plays through the air is what won this game. So that's something to look at. Now look at Addison on the other side. Now, look, it's a short week. They get the Chargers this week. The McCarthy thing, I don't know if it's going to pivot here in the short week. It's interesting because it is McCarthy versus Jim Harbaugh and maybe his defensive coordinator at Michigan, Jesse Minter. So that could be somebody that knows something about him. Maybe you don't want to put McCarthy in his first game against people that know something about him. So if Addison is with Wentz, I think I feel really good about him. The Chargers defense is falling apart at this moment. So I'm totally fine with playing him every week as a wide receiver 3 at this point. Again, the matchups are different. I just think the Chargers, again, they need to pick up the pieces. I think they'll play better defensively. But look, Addison, since he came, I mean, TJ Hawkinson was complaining about that touchdown and all that. But I think Addison is going to be more consistently involved as the number 2 target to Jefferson going forward.
And then lastly here for stock up, it has to be the Bengals offense now that Joe Flacco's there. I mean, Jamar Chase went off with 23. He had 23 targets. He could not stop being targeted. Nobody could cover him, right? So we already know Jamar Chase is going to be good. But T. Higgins now has his top 2 receiving yard games of the season in the last 2 weeks with Flacco, with 10 targets, 6 receptions, 96 yards, and a touchdown this past week. They get the Jets this week. And even Chase Brown put up over 100 rushing yards on the ground and it finally looked good. So this whole Bengals offense is looking up as we enter week 8. We are going to now pivot to players whose stock is looking down entering this week. We'll get to that right after a quick break. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's sad. Software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is a unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. By uniting your employees, teams, and departments in one system, Rippling removes the bottlenecks, busy work, and silos your software created. Whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one, or you just want to fill the gaps into your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. Learn more at rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions do apply. This episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is so much fun. It's super simple, and it adds excitement to football. You can pick more or less on player projections, like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley's rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. Prize Picks also just added stacks, so if you really want to ride or die on a player, you can select their passing yards, rushing yards, touchdowns, all in one lineup. Also, my favorite part of Prize Picks is their new injury reboot feature. If your player leaves early, doesn't return with the injury, it won't count against you. We all know how important that is in NFL games with how many injuries we deal with. But there's also a special max discount promotion live on the board right now for the Warriors versus Lakers game on October 21st. Steph Curry is discounted to only needing more than a half of a point to win. So one basket, he wins. Mix and match players from football, basketball, and baseball to build your dream lineup today. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be Right. All right, couple injuries to quarterbacks this week. Jaden Daniels hamstring week to week, but I guess it's not as bad as originally thought. So maybe he's back sooner than we think. And then Bryce Young ankle, it looks like he'll definitely be out for week 8. So we'll get Andy Dalton in the week 8 game against the Bills. But let's talk about some players who didn't get injured and whose stock's just looking down. And we got to start with Justin Fields. Is he just done? So, I mean, second straight week, he couldn't even throw for 50 passing yards. He gets benched. But then Tyrod Taylor throws 2 interceptions in relief of Fields. The Jets only allowed 13 points each of the last 2 weeks. 13 points to the Broncos, 13 points to the Panthers, and they're 0-2 still. 0-7 on the season, but 0-2 in those weeks. They get the Bengals this week. Could be a nice matchup for Fields or Taylor, but do you think Fields is just done being the starting quarterback for the Jets?
Yeah, I mean, they just need a win. But, I mean, if Taylor kind of rallied them and they looked better with him in the game, but they didn't really. Yeah. I think there's a lot of fundamental problems, and number one is you don't really have any receiving core. I mean, Mason Taylor can't carry this group, right? Without Garrett Wilson, there's not a lot there. I mean, Mason Taylor did the best he could with what he was available to, right, in that matchup, and there just isn't anything going on. I mean, their offensive line, they had some promise with more so the tackles. That hasn't kind of materialized yet either. So you haven't seen everything come together up front. So, yeah, I just don't think they know what their identity is, right? I mean, they came from the Lions. The Lions had a pocket quarterback. Justin Fields is not a pocket quarterback. Tyrod Taylor can be that at his age. So I just don't think they know exactly what their game plan needs to be. And then you don't have Wilson in there. It blows up a lot of things. So I don't really care who's the quarterback right now. I mean, you can't play Fields, that's for sure, if he's in there. Taylor, I would not feel great about streaming him, even at Cincinnati this week. Like, I would not do it. So, again, just to avoid this, look, we're just going to hope for the best. The one good thing is if Garrett Wilson can return, I think Taylor definitely would help his stock because of his bigger arm and being able to actually throw the ball once in a while. So that would really help if Wilson was in there. But with no Wilson against the Panthers D that's been playing well, they had no chance.
Yeah, and Breece Hall got banged up in that game, but also like this whole offense isn't working whatsoever. It's just the Jets all over again. It doesn't matter who's back there at quarterback. Yeah. Nothing's working. Now, Alvin Kamara has been completely pointless for fantasy this year, almost, right? But Kendre Miller tore his ACL. So I was going to ask, is he no longer startable? Because he's averaging just 9 fantasy points per game, 9.0 fantasy points per game. That's 33rd among running backs. Like a guy like Tony Pollard is averaging more than Alvin Kamara. And I mean, these are his last 5 games: 6 points, 9 points, 7 points, 10 points, 4 points yesterday. He's just not getting utilized very much in the receiving game. His efficiency on the ground is terrible, and 1 rushing touchdown all year, and that came in week 1. There's just not the opportunity. This week, he'll get the Buccaneers really tough run defense. And then the week after that, he gets the Rams really tough run defense. So I just don't think Kamara should be started. Now, maybe with Kendre Miller out, he gets so much volume, it makes it up, but I don't know.
Yeah, here's the problem. I mean, they're not afraid to be aggressive with Spencer Rattler. I did not foresee this a little bit, that they're just letting Spencer Rattler loose, probably because they have nothing to lose, right? See what the kid can do. So he's been firing the ball downfield to Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed and actually making plays, actually helping their wide receivers, produce a lot more than maybe we expected with Rattler back there. So what's happening? No checkdowns. But they're also trailing big time in games in almost every game, or having drive stalled where they are in a hole. And that's going to hurt your running back completely. If they're not checking down to him and then they're not in games where they're competitive and they can run the ball effectively, it's the double whammy against Kamara. And then Kamara made those weird comments where, look, we were expecting maybe he gets traded and his value increases, but then he said if he gets traded, he's quitting. This is the end of the line for him. He wants to finish his career in New Orleans. I think that's probably trending to what he's going to get at this point. It just, will it be anything better than this? So Kendre Miller injury obviously is a blow, but Kellen Moore, look, he's not always the best in terms of like opening things up for the running back. Last year, I think it was a bit of an anomaly with Saquon Barkley, where, again, he had the great line, he had the great offense around him. They don't have that stuff in New Orleans. So Kamara, again, got to be very careful. And as you said with his ranking, I think it's just flex play or nothing for Alvin Kamara going forward.
Yeah, yeah. I really don't want to have to play him. If not, Ashton Jeanty in this Raiders offense stock is looking so down. They can't do anything. Now they have a week 8 bye. Maybe they can figure something out, but I don't really know what the I don't know what the fix is, right? Geno Smith is playing terribly. The offensive line is playing terrible. They don't like Jacoby Myers, I guess, is on the trading block. He's not even out there. Brock Bowers is injured. I don't think moving to Kenny Pickett's really going to change anything. But Ashton Jeanty is the running back 17 on average this year at 12.7 points per game. Only scored 3.9 fantasy points this last week. Only touched the ball 7 times. Like, I get it, you're getting killed, but him not being involved in the passing game is so crazy to me. Like, with them getting murdered like this, he should have been able to make it up in the receiving game, but he had one reception all game long. So it's just Jeanty should be doing so much better than he is. You're still going to play him. I mean, the 3 weeks prior, he was perfectly fine, but week 7 was a massive disappointment.
Yeah, I think Tanner Engstrand's going through this problem with the Jets. I think Chip Kelly's going through this problem with the Raiders. I don't think he's a great fit. He's not adjusting his system very well to tailor to the player. And that's a problem with some of these coordinators, where if they don't do that, they're not going to get their strengths going. Like, yeah, you got to pepper Jeanty. You got to give him a shot. I mean, it should be like the Brown situation, right? I just don't think they have the offensive line horses in the middle. They don't have anybody now threatening without Brock Bowers in there, where he's going to draw the defensive attention. So everything's on Jeanty. Geno Smith is not being effective at all. So it's all just exploding in their face. So yeah, let's just hope for the best with Jeanty. Like, you're right. I'm not sure that Kenny Pickett starting him is going to do anything. Maybe Aiden O'Connell needs to come back somehow from his injury and make this offense decent again. At least it was decent, right? When we saw last year with O'Connell, even though it was messy, he was taking those shots and doing things. Geno Smith has just been a disaster. So I don't know. Just stick with him, but he's an RB2 going forward.
And clearly Chip Kelly's just not working. Maybe find a new caller, please.
No, Pete Carroll already knows he's not working. Yeah. So Pete Carroll needs to find someone he trusts to be the coordinator. So we'll see if that happens.
Yeah. Now Travis Etienne was fun for 5 seconds, but the last 3 weeks, not doing anything. 7.3 points, 7.5, 6 fantasy points, season low. He only had 9 touches in the game. They got murdered. But again, like another guy that should be used in the passing game, and he's not. They have a week 8 bye. They get the Raiders after the bye. So, like, you're going to play him in week 9. And if they, they can stay in this game, they should, right? And beat up on him, then hopefully his touches go back up. But I want to talk about Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt here to finish up the stock down, because was he just a one-hit wonder? That week 5 game, he goes off for 111 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, scores 26 fantasy points. But the 2 weeks after, 5.3 points, 3.7 points yesterday. He's still leading the team in the backfield, I should say, in touches and snaps, but the production just has not been there the last couple of weeks. And they get the Chiefs next week, and you expect the Chiefs to be able to beat up on the Commanders. So is there going to be? It's not like he's involved in the passing game. So are we just kind of living off of that week 5 game at this point?
Well, the Commanders kind of have to be playing in a situation where they have a lead a little bit with JCM. And they did that a little bit in the Chargers game a couple weeks ago. There was just the way it went down. It was helpful for this Commanders offense. But when we look at now, if Mariota's out there and they're playing the Chiefs, we just saw what happened to Jeanty and the Raiders offense. I mean, that's not great. And then they suddenly go hot hand, right? I hate that term, but I think Cliff Kingsbury, go back all the way to Arizona, he does that from time to time. He makes you scratch your head on who's touching the ball in the backfield. We saw Chris Rodriguez, garbage touchdown. Jeremy McNichols had more running. So it's like, it's random when they say, okay, you know what? We're going to get McNichols and Rodriguez involved this week. And then there's a week where it's all JCM and Bill going nuts, right? So I don't know what you're going to get from week to week, but the matchup stinks this week. And if it's Mariota, again, without those receivers, McLaurin and Samuel, miss another game, like, I don't know what the Chiefs have to worry about other than stopping the run. So I'm a little bit afraid for him this week, but it's fickle. You're still going to keep him on your roster. You still could flex him even in a tough matchup, but he's not. Look, I think we've been looking for JCM to take over as the workhorse. That clearly is not going to be a consistent thing that's going to happen in Washington.
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't look that way. All right, we're going to transition to our waiver wire priorities. Some guys you might want to consider picking up for this week or just stashing for the long term. We'll get to that right after a quick break.
All right, this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. That's of August 2025. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players in fantasy football, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. NFL season midway point is almost here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss as we get into the nitty-gritty. This is the time to get in. You got all the data points, and you want to get in the action. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you would unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something riding on the action. It was great to do that all day long, starting with the early game in London. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better for you. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started only at FanDuel.com and the FanDuel app. All right, Michelle, it's time to look at the waiver wire, related a little bit to the stock watch, but we do have those 6 teams on bye. I hate that term, but I must say it anyway. It's bye-mageddon. I don't like it. It's terrible. It sounds like it's the end of the world. No, it's just a little hiccup. The smart fantasy managers can get through it. Now, there's not a lot, I hate to say, on the waiver wire.
Yeah.
Streaming quarterbacks could help you, but we didn't have starting running backs fall from the sky like we wanted before the bye week. So, again, I guess at running back, our best option now is Kyle Monangai of the Bears. The Bears are hot. They've won 4 straight games. They get the Ravens defense this week, which we'll see if they fixed anything or much after the bye week. And he's getting more touches with DeAndre Swift. And this running game, I think, is coming alive. I don't want to call this yet, but it seems like we're slowly developing Ben Johnson's light version of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs with DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai.
Yeah, Swift and Monangai looked great yesterday against the Saints defense, and the Ravens have been giving up yards on the ground. So, I mean, it's not just that, it's more about the workload too. He was on the field for nearly 50% of snaps. So it's like that 50-50 split. Got 15 touches, had 13 carries, 81 yards, got a touchdown. Like, I do think he definitely needs to be picked up. Now, I don't think he's a necessary, like, you need to start him, but if you're in a pinch, I do think you can start him, right? And then there's really not a lot of options at running back else out there. Maybe Tyler Algier, if you want to risk that he gets, Isaiah Davis, if Breece Hall were to, be too injured, but it looks like he's going to be fine for week 8. And then, I guess at this point, you're just picking up guys for insurance, like Brian Robinson Jr. for Christian McCaffrey, or again, like Algier for Bijan Robinson. But let's move on to wide receivers, because it's really just Kyle Monangai there at the top for running backs. But some opportunities at wide receivers this week. Xavier Legette had a really big game in week 7 with 11 targets, 9 receptions, 92 yards, and a touchdown. Really first good game of the year. But was that more just to do that Sauce Gardner was up on Tetairoa McMillan and they needed Legette to step up?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've wanted him to step up for a while. They don't really have a second target. We've been waiting for whatever Jalen Coker to get healthy and get back in the mix and all that. And Jatavion Sanders hasn't quite panned out. He's also missed time with injury. So they need a number 2 somewhere, and Legette could be it. We'll see what Andy Dalton does in distributing the ball here against the Bills. And again, the Bills don't have great corners. They have good corners, but I don't be too afraid. I mean, if you really are desperate at wide receiver 3, and there are a lot of wide receivers off this week, folks, I think he'd be a guy that I would look at. Another guy is Kayshon Boutte. Like, he's very hard to trust. He's a big play dependent receiver. And as long as Drake May hovers dealing downfield, but he looks great anytime, like, May puts up a beautiful pass and he seems to just come down with it. It's always something long and awesome. Like, he doesn't catch any short passes. So I think of the guys, I mean, Stephon Diggs and Boutte, I think now with Austin Hooper stealing touchdowns from Hunter Henry, it's a little bit harder to trust there. So if I had to go with anyone other than Diggs, who had solid volume, in the game. I think you look at Booty. I mean, they're playing the Browns, which isn't great, but the Browns are not as good of a defense on the road. The Patriots have just been on fire of late.
Yeah, I think some other guys that are good pickups that you could play in a pinch. Alec Pierce, he gets the Titans next week, had 10 targets this last week, 5 receptions, 98 yards. He does have over 60 receiving yards in 3 of 5 games played this year. Yeah. He missed a couple games with injury, but no touchdowns yet. That's what you need. And then Josh Downs, I guess, but if I was picking one, I would prefer Pierce because you don't need as much work from him. He's the bigger play guy than Josh Downs is. And then Darnell Mooney, I mean, he gets the Dolphins, right? And the Falcons, I mean, I think Bijan Robinson's going to take care of business, but I do think Mooney is also a possibility pickup at wide receiver this week.
Yeah, one other guy that I actually played this week, and I was surprised that I got the decent point. I had to pick up somebody to pinch with Garrett Wilson off. I thought about the Commanders receivers, and I went with Jalen Lane, and go figure, he led the team in receiving. It wasn't pretty, but he still got some targets, and look, I was a playable guy. Got me 8 points I needed as a wide receiver 3, so you can do that as well. I mean, watch out for McLaurin and Samuel, but they're going to have to target Jalen Lane. Look, I thought Luke McCaffrey might be involved, but then he got hurt in the middle of the game. So there should be an opportunity with those Commanders receivers, but it looks like Lane, not like Robbie Chosen or some other guys, seems like the way you could go with that, or Chris Moore, or any of those other dudes. So if you're desperate, that's another way to go this week as well.
And then at tight end, Oronde Gadsden is going to be one of the bigger names picked up off of waivers this week. I mean, 164 yards and a touchdown on 9 targets, 7 receptions, 26 fantasy points and half PPR. But like even the week prior, he had 8 targets, 7 receptions, 68 yards. So he's been involved. He's played over 75% of the snaps each of the last 2 weeks for the Chargers, and his percentage has gone up every game of his NFL career, with up to 79% of the time on the field this past week. So Gadsden's going to be a huge pickup. And then what about Colston Loveland with Cole Kmet injured? He can miss time. They get the Ravens. That could be an option too if you miss out on Gadsden.
Yeah, let's watch that for sure, because Colston Loveland hasn't really been unlocked that much. Luther Burden has had some flashes here. But the Bears, again, they're becoming maybe shifting into more of a running first team now, and it's working. As long as they're winning, they're going in that direction. But, man, what if the Bears had taken Tyler Warren instead of Colston Loveland? I'm just saying they probably should have done that, and this offense would be a little bit different. But Loveland, again, we'll see. Like, he was touted. We said stay away from him. When he was popping up in the top 12, top 15 at tight end before the season, this could be an opportunity, but I just think the Bears still have too many mouths to feed, and now if they're running the ball a lot, it's extra, right? You don't know how many opportunities he's going to get. So if you're desperate, you can pick up Loveland, but they got to throw to the tight end a little bit more consistently. Like Gadsden, I think, way much better pickup. He even broke Antonio Gates' rookie receiving record. And that tells you something, how good Gadsden can be, and he's got receiving in his blood as a converted wide receiver as well.
Now, for streaming quarterback options, obviously Jackson Dart, if he's out there, would be first and a major priority pickup. But other options that are more likely to be out there, maybe Joe Flacco against the Jets, Michael Penix Jr. against the Dolphins. Yes. We got another revenge game, Aaron Rodgers against the Packers. And if you really have to go low, maybe Tyrod Taylor if he plays against the Bengals, or Andy Dalton against the Bills. But, out of those guys, I'm looking at Michael Penix Jr. against the Dolphins, or one of the revenge guys, probably more Rodgers versus the Packers. And the Jets defense has really stepped it up the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Flacco, look, he still has the weapons that we talked about with Matthew Stafford. It was often just the weapons. And Flacco's streaming is based on the weapons, right? If we expect Higgins and Chase to have a good game, he's going to have a big game. I mean, Rodgers just gives me a little pause because the weaponry is not there. I don't know how often he can get away with throwing to Pat Freiermuth and Johnny Smith for points, especially against a good Packers pass defense coming down. The Packers are favored coming in, and it's a lower scoring game. So that would be the one buyer beware, but the revenge, motivational, chip on the shoulder factors there. So I think in the order I would go Flacco, then Penix. He seems to be just much better at home. And it's the Dolphins. They stink. And then I look at Rodgers, and then I don't think I want any part of Taylor or Dalton, but you might need to play them. If you're in 2 quarterback Superflex leagues, look, there's 6 people on bye. You're going to have to start almost anybody that's out there, because that's, again, 26 quarterbacks in play. So only 2 in Superflex are going to be left on the bench here this week.
Yeah, my top guy would be Michael Penix Jr. this week against the Dolphins. But that will be it for today's episode. Thank you all again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We'll be back tomorrow starting our positional rankings for week 8, starting with quarterbacks and tight ends. Don't miss it. Enjoy the 2 Monday Night Football games tonight. Bye, y'all.